In this video, we're going to be looking at the basics of economic analysis. We'll be looking at some core tools and concepts that will be used throughout the semester and other econ courses. In economics, people make choices because of scarcity, and to make the best choices, to maximize our profit, maximize our happiness, maximize our use of resources, we're going to be making choices at the margin. We're looking at small changes or marginal changes. We're going to be doing marginal analysis. What happens if we get a little bit less or a little bit more? What happens to unemployment if minimum wages increase by $1? We're not talking about the total effect of unemployment because of having a minimum wage or not. We're saying what's going to happen to unemployment if wages increase by $1? Or how many shirts will consumers want to purchase if the price goes down by $1? So we're looking at small changes. Maybe we want to say we're starting at $10 and we're going to go to 0, but we might look at the change from 10 to 9, then 9 to 8, and so on and so forth. So we want to look at small changes, extra costs, extra benefits. When we use the term marginal, it just means extra, a little bit more, a little bit less. California is often in a drought, and people need to save water. Typically, ads, government policies, things you hear at school from your friends, it's going to be marginal analysis. So you're going to take a shorter shower, a little bit less water, turn the water off while you're brushing your teeth, water grass every other day. These are all marginal choices. We're making small changes. We're not going from all water use to no water use. We find little ways to save, marginal reductions in water usage. So marginal analysis is going to look at how costs and benefits are affected by small changes. We're going to use the Latin term ceteris paribus, meaning everything else is unchanged. So we're going to evaluate only one change at a time. So if we're looking at the question of what happens to unemployment when minimum wages go up, we're going to assume that the only change happening in the economy is the rise in minimum wage. Now, this is not necessarily practical in reality. Lots of things change all the time. As you get deeper into economic analysis, if you major in economics, there's a lot of data and statistical analysis that can be used to try to evaluate things as ceteris paribus. So there's ways that we can control for some of these other things that might be changing. So one assumption we're going to make in all of our models this semester is that we're only going to have one change at a time. So let's do some cost-benefit analysis. So a marginal cost is the extra cost of an action, and the marginal benefit is the extra benefit of an action. So when we're doing marginal cost benefit analysis, we want to say, what is the cost of one extra? What is the benefit of one extra? And we want to make sure that our benefits are greater than our costs. Otherwise, it's not going to be worth it to do an activity. Because of scarcity, we can then spend those extra resources doing something else. So we just want to make sure that all of our activities have a marginal benefit that's greater than or equal to the marginal cost of that activity. So let's look at an example. We're trying to decide how many Wi-Fi study spots should be on campus. And we're going to choose the number, the quantity, where the marginal cost is less than or equal to the marginal benefit. So let's say PCC wants to expand the number of outdoor Wi-Fi study spots for students. The marginal benefit is going to be constant, so it's going to be $8,000 in marginal benefits for each study site. And we want to know how many PCC should build. Now this $8,000, I'm going to give this information to you in this example. Sometimes you may be able to calculate it depending on the question. Okay, so here we have this table. This is going to tell us the number of Wi-Fi study spots and the total cost. And what we want to do is we want to figure out the marginal cost, and we want to compare that to the marginal benefit. I also have a tab here for average cost. Average cost is important for some things, especially in microeconomics when you're trying to calculate profits and losses, shutdown point for a company. There are things that we do use average cost for, but when we're trying to find the optimal use of resources, we use marginal cost and marginal benefit. It's just a quick rule to help us figure out the optimal number in a consistent way. And we'll continue to do that several different times throughout the semester. So average, this is probably what you're more familiar with. The average is the total divided by the quantity. So if it's a total cost of $6,000 and you have one study spot, the average cost is going to be $6,000. If you have two study spots with a total cost of $13,000, then your average cost is going to be $6,500. When you have 3 study spots and the total cost is $21,000, this gives us an average cost of $7,000. For 4, our average cost is $8,000. And for 5, our average cost is $8,400. Oftentimes when people are doing cost-benefit analysis in their own personal lives, they look at average costs. So how much is one slice of pizza going to cost me? If I buy a whole pizza, how much is it going to cost me per slice? Marginal cost-benefit analysis says we don't want to look at the average cost, we want to look at the extra cost. So for our first study spot, our extra cost, when we go from 0 to 1, our cost for 0 study spots is $0. Okay, so our extra is going to be $6,000. So marginal cost is going to be the total of 2 minus the total of 1, or the total for 5 minus the total for 4. So the extra cost if we add one more. So the marginal cost for the second study spot is going to be this. We're going to go from $6,000 to $13,000. So the extra cost is actually $7,000. When we go from 2 to 3, the total cost increases from $13,000 to $21,000. And so our extra cost, or our marginal cost, is $8,000. Marginal cost for 4 is going to be $9,000. And the marginal cost for number 5 is going to be $10,000. So for each of those, to get the marginal cost, I took the total for that number minus the total for the earlier one. So the marginal cost for 5, we took $42,000 minus $32,000. So if you notice, when we're looking at the average and the total cost, they're kind of similar, but they're not, right? They're not the same. Okay, so when we're using our rule, we want to pick the point where marginal benefit is greater than or equal to marginal cost, or marginal cost is less than or equal to marginal benefit. Basically, we want to be getting at least as many benefits as what it's costing us. Now, in this case, our marginal benefit is $8,000 per spot, right, per Wi-Fi spot. So we want to find on our chart where the marginal cost is $8,000 or less. So we go over here to this chart and we see that that's going to be right here at 3 Wi-Fi study spots. If we were looking at average cost, we might go all the way up to 4. because we would say, oh, 4 is affordable, right? We are getting $8,000 of benefits per unit, and we're getting $8,000 in cost per unit, okay, on average. The problem with using the average is we're actually losing a little bit of money, because when we go from 3 study spots to 4, we have an extra cost of $9,000. But we're only getting extra benefits of $8,000. So if we go to unit number 4, or 4 study spots, we're actually spending more money to build that 4th one than the extra benefits we receive from having it exist. And so because of scarcity, it would be better if PCC takes that extra money and puts it into something else instead, something that has a higher marginal benefit. Incentives is a concept in economics that looks at how changes in costs and benefits affect behavior. So an incentive is an additional cost or benefit that's used to influence behavior. Incentives can be created intentionally, or could be an unexpected side effect of a rule, program, or policy. A positive incentive is something that increases benefits or decreases costs. A negative incentive is something that increases costs or decreases benefits. For example, let's say that I want students to attend a small business workshop, and so I offer students 5 extra credit points to go. And the question I have is, will this change the number of students who attend the workshop? So yes, it will. As long as the marginal benefit of attending increases more than the marginal cost of attending. Will all students go to the workshop if I offer extra credit? No, they won't. Will a lot of students go? It depends, right? It depends on what the marginal costs are compared to the benefit of 5 extra credit points. So let's say we have a student who wasn't planning to go to the workshop, and now when there is an extra credit opportunity, they do go. What this means is that originally the marginal cost was greater than the marginal benefit. They weren't going to attend the workshop because the extra benefits they would get from going were less than the extra cost for them to attend. Now remember, this includes opportunity costs, so the time cost, right? Even though it might be a free workshop, there's other things you're giving up to be there. After the extra credit offer, now this marginal benefit increases and it's greater than the marginal cost. So the student decides to go because they're getting a larger benefit compared to that cost. Another student who was not planning to go still does not go after the extra credit offer. That means that the marginal benefit is still lower than the marginal cost, and it is not worth it for the student to attend. So if I want students to go to a workshop or do some sort of activity, I have to offer enough extra credit points or enough of a positive incentive to change that balance, right? To make sure that marginal benefits are greater than marginal costs. Otherwise, it's not going to affect student behavior. Economics is a science. It is a soft science, but it is still trying to use the scientific method. We're going to look at lots of different economic models. We're going to look at graphs and tables, different theories of the economy. We're going to look at how people make choices, but all of these things are simplified versions of reality. They need to be continually evaluated and revised. Just because a model has worked well in the past does not mean it's going to continue to apply forever in the future. If you think about a map, you may go onto Google or into your phone and you type in an address and you say, give me directions to this place. You're going to see a picture on your phone or your computer that's going to show you a map. It's going to be different lines, some names, street names, some of them will be thicker, some will be thinner, but it's a very, very simplified version of reality. It does not show in great detail the buildings you're going to pass. It doesn't show the exact curvature of the street, right? A lot of the lines are just straight in the map, but it's useful. It's very useful and can help you get to where you're going. So simplified versions, simple models, are fine as long as they get us to the destination that we're trying to get to. When they no longer do that, we need to evaluate them, right? We need to revise them, maybe throw out this model, come up with something different. We're going to talk about a lot of things that are correlated in this class. Correlated means that things move in the same direction or they move in opposite directions, but there's an obvious connection between two things. Correlation does not imply causality. So just because two things happen at the same time does not necessarily mean that one thing caused the other. Sometimes we'll see that there is a specific cause of something. Sometimes we're not sure, and maybe we just say, we know these things move at the same time, but we don't really know why. It could be that we have an omitted variable bias. So there could be some other third factor that's actually causing both of those things. There could be reverse causality. It may be that we're saying minimum wage going up causes unemployment, but maybe it's really the other way around. Unemployment going up causes minimum wage. Sometimes those things will seem obvious to us, sometimes they won't, and sometimes we're going to have to revise and do things over. We're going to watch this short clip about correlation versus causality. This is from Freakonomics, which you will have a chance to watch more of later in the semester.
Isn't it? But did you know that there are some boys and girls who can't run and jump and play? It's all because of a thing called polio.
When I think of bad historical assumptions about correlation and causality, I think of polio 100 years ago, when it was this horrible mystery that it was, claiming a lot of lives, and it was really scary because it mostly struck children. And there was a strong line of research that suggested that ice cream caused polio, that ice cream consumption caused polio.
Here comes Mr. Softy, the soft ice cream man. The creamy soft ice cream you get from Mr. Softy.
The reason that correlation was thought to be causal was that polio spiked in the summertime for reasons that really weren't very well understood, but it did. And ice cream sales spiked during the summertime. So these researchers had seen that whenever there was a lot of ice cream being sold and consumed, there was a lot more polio. And so there was really literally the beginnings of this kind of ice cream persecution to try to stomp out polio. And it sounds ridiculous, but you see it all the time now, people trying to fight against or build up something that they're sure is connected to something else, in which it turns out just isn't.
And so there was actually an omitted variable. Really, it was the summer, right? Warm summer months were causing both of those things to increase, causing both polio to go up and ice cream consumption to go up. The last category of analysis we're going to look at in this video is called normative and positive analysis. Normative analysis is some sort of opinion statement, what should be. Positive analysis is some sort of observation, what actually is. Normative is a value judgment. So a normative statement could be, we should spend more money on higher education. The government should provide free college tuition for all freshmen. That's an opinion. It's a value judgment. Why? Because it involves trade-offs. So if we spend more money on higher education, it does mean that we're devoting less resources to other things in society that might be important. Now, everybody can have the same normative opinion, so we can have normative analysis where we all agree, but that doesn't make it a fact. So everybody agreeing on something does not mean it is all of a sudden an observation. Positive analysis or observation is something that we can observe, something that we can go fact check. something that can be a true or false statement. So something being positive analysis does not mean that it's a true statement. It could be false. So I could say, it is raining outside right now. That is a positive statement because it is something that you could go and check. So you could open your window, you can look outside and see if it's raining. If you're on campus, you can go and look and see if it's raining. If you know what time I am referring to and what place I'm at right now when I'm saying this, you could probably go on Google and look up the record to see if it is actually raining or not. So what I might be saying is false, but that doesn't make it an opinion. So if it's something that you can check, if you can measure it, then it can be a positive analysis. Otherwise, if we're talking about if something is a good thing or a bad thing, typically it's going to be more of an opinion, something that we can't check. So let's do some examples. Okay, so I'm going to go through all of these and I want you to make a note and say if you think this is normative analysis or positive analysis. Number 1, if taxes increase on cigarettes, there will be less teenage smoking. We should increase government spending on higher education. The price of coffee at Starbucks is too high. Minimum wage increases will cause unemployment to increase. The price of coffee at Starbucks is $4.75. If you don't have all of your answers yet, please pause the video, go through and mark which ones you think are normative, which ones you think are positive. Okay, number 1, if taxes increase on cigarettes, there will be less teenage smoking. This is a positive statement. This is positive analysis. Why? Because we can check and see if that happens. So we can go and look and say, in times in the past when taxes have increased, what happened to the rate of teenage smoking? So this is an if-then statement, right? It's predicting something that's going to happen in the future. That does not make it normative analysis. It's not an opinion just because it hasn't happened yet. Right? It is something that we can check. It is something that can be a true or false statement. Number 2, we should increase government spending on higher education. This is a normative statement. Why is it normative? Because it has a value judgment. We should increase spending on higher education. It could be an opinion that everybody agrees with, but it's not a true or false statement, right? It's not something that we can measure or fact check. Number 3, the price of coffee at Starbucks is too high. This is a normative statement. This is an opinion or a value judgment. We know that everybody does not hold this opinion because Starbucks still has a lot of stores, a lot of customers, they make money. So the price of coffee being too high is going to be a normative statement. 4, minimum wage increases will cause unemployment to increase. This is a positive statement, positive analysis. Why? Because it's something that we can check, right? We can measure this. What happens to the level of unemployment when minimum wages change? 5, the price of coffee at Starbucks is $4.75. This is also positive analysis. We can all walk into Starbucks and look and see what the price of coffee is. This is not going to be true at every location we go to, but if we all walk into the same Starbucks location on the same day, same time, we look at the menu, we'll be able to see if this is true or not. So positive analysis and observation is something that we can check, something that we can measure, something that we can say is true or false. Normative is going to be a value judgment, an opinion, what an individual person thinks should be happening. That's going to be the end of this video for today.